Okay. All right. First of all, I just want to say to those of you that are here, welcome to the show. This is the Stephen D. Kelley Show. My name is Stephen D. Kelley. This is Truth Cat Radio. It is June 6th, 2019. That's 662019. It's roughly about 7 o'clock, almost 7 o'clock. Well, there's a little lag on the radio. But anyway, tonight's show is extremely important. And I'm going to advise you, if you're listening on a recording or if you're tuning in live, to stick around for the whole thing, because I'm going to cram in a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm going to do my best to keep this as comprehensive and as non-disjointed as possible. I know it's a double negative, but anyway, like I said, well, first of all, the title of the show tonight is Blood and Cement. Bloody cement, bloody cement. Okay, I tried to keep it simple. I could have come up with all kinds of things like that, but bloody concrete, blood in concrete, blood as a building material, whatever. And I'm probably, before I go too much further, I want to dedicate this show tonight to Screwy Louie. That's right, you out there in Lewis in Arizona, I'm going to dedicate this show to you, and whether you like it or not, I get to call you Screwy Louie. Just deal with it. Wear it with honor. But, Lewis, you are the one that first pointed out this whole business with the blood and the concrete. Nobody really paid attention. I certainly didn't pay attention. But lo and behold, blood has always been a major component of concrete. Now, I still have a woman. My husband worked in concrete for years, and that's bullshit. We never said anything about blood and concrete. Oh, yeah. All right, anyway. So what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to discuss the history of blood and concrete, why they do it, who did it, who started it, when it started, what it does, what's involved in concrete, why is concrete, what makes concrete work, all the scientific stuff involving this process of cementification. And what does blood have to do with this? We're also going to talk about the religious aspects of this business. And when I say religion, I also want to remind everybody right away, because this is important, and I can't stress this enough because I've said this before, and I'm just going to repeat it one more time. What you call religion is all about ritual, and they do rituals to cause magic to happen. They do not do rituals because some holy book somewhere said, do this and it makes God happy and that's why they do it. No, they do it because they expect something to happen. That's the magic part. That is the result. So all this stuff that they're doing is intended to have a result. And after thousands of years, you can pretty much bet that if they were not achieving the desired result, they would have stopped doing it, but they're still doing it. Now, I'm going to warn you also, if this information doesn't completely alter your perspective of reality and our lifestyle and our culture, I don't know what is, because we're going to look very closely at everything around you, your building materials, your homes, the food you eat, the process of eating your food, sharing your food with others, the symbolism, the energy involved, especially with blood, because certainly blood is associated with the food that you eat, especially when you share it, and the life energy. And the very fact that the word blood is almost synonymous with cement. Remember the Eucharist, Christ said, take this blood and drink of it. Take this bread. This will be my body, all that. That was to form a union, a bond. We're going to talk about that because you can't get away from this stuff. And it's pretty grisly. Okay? Where do we start? All right, well, before I dive into this, there's a couple things I need to run by you all real quick because it just happened. But about a week ago, roughly, or over the Memorial Day weekend, I believe it was. Actually, it was the next weekend because it rained over the Memorial Day weekend. But we had a Getty mission where 8.5 by 11 full-color glossy brochures that basically said there's 100,000 children under the Getty. Do you care? Those were plastered all over a local city successfully. Now, the problem is the local hoodlums that I incorporated or recruited to do the job, you know, they're hoodlums. They get in trouble. One of them, and they took pictures. I told them to take pictures. Unfortunately, they took pictures with themselves in the photos. Anyway, even though this is just hearsay, it's not really evidence of anything crime-wise. It's still something that they were very concerned about. Well, needless to say, one of these young men ended up in jail when he was released. They had taken his phone and did not return it, the phone with the photos of the brochures of the Getty mission going up on walls. And they said, no, you didn't have a phone when you were picked up. Now, the other guy that was with him, because it's a two-man operation to do this stuff, was picked up last night about 12:30, actually this morning at 12:30 p.m. or a.m., I guess it is, 30 minutes into the day. And the people that picked him up were dressed in suits, driving a Crown Victoria, immediately cuffed him and threw him in the back of the car and identified themselves as an NSA squad. What they call themselves? Anyway, they identified themselves as NSA, and they proceeded to ask this kid, he's a kid, he's not an adult, what does he know about the Getty? And what are his feelings / opinions of the U.S. government? Now, fortunately, the kid was smart enough to basically say, I don't know what y'all are talking about. And he said, and I, as an American citizen, would like to invoke my Fifth Amendment rights at this time. And I will answer no more questions without the presence of my attorney. And the NSA jokers said, fine. They said, we'll expect to see you tomorrow then at the industry sheriff's station. And they uncuffed him and they let him go. Now, first of all, obviously, they had no reason to do any of this stuff. But the very fact that people that are identifying themselves as NSA personnel, whatever team, linking the Getty, saying the words Getty and government simultaneously, as if to suggest that the Getty has anything to do with the government. That's kind of a bust, people. And it shows right away that everything I say is 100% correct. All right. Now, anyway, needless to say, as far as the NSA is concerned, Agent Rodriguez, Agent, let's see, what was the other guy's name? Rickenbacker and Rodriguez. All right, guys, listen. I don't know. I know you follow orders and all that stuff, but that was a really stupid move, okay? Really stupid move. Did you really think that the kid was going to go to the sheriff's station and just spill his guts to you without any kind of, reason? Come on. I know you guys are stupid. You get paid to be stupid, but please don't act like we're all stupid too. Even little stupid kids on the street, they're not that stupid. So come on. It ain't going to go down the way you wanted. And now, idiots, you got all the little gangbangers all pissed off. You can't screw with one of the gangbangers and threaten them with RICO without the whole gang finding out about it, you stupid idiots. Now, what do you think? What do you think is keeping them from going after you right now, you morons? What do you think? Me. Anyway, so if you thought they were going to roll over on me, I don't know what the hell you're thinking, because there's nothing to roll over, fools. I'm very transparent. You know where I live, and you know how to get me, and you know everything. It's just too bad now that everyone else is going to find out. All right, let's get back to bloody cement. Now, again, back to Arizona. I'm going to remind you all that CMEX, of course, was a big factor in all this. And CMEX, of course, is the company that is a big giant cement company that's owned by Carlos Slim. who is the front man, money man for Carlos Salinas de Gortari, former president of Mexico. We talked about him extensively on the Carlos Slim show that we did here not too long ago. We're going to talk about him tonight because he's involved. Now, when Laura pointed this out to me a couple of days ago and she said, oh, you got to check out this blood thing, she was suggesting that there was a connection between a French cement company and something to do with the Nixivim cult. Renier, that, moron Renier and his little cult. Anyway, but as if to suggest that there is some kind of connection with the cult providing victims and blood for this industry. So that was kind of one of the impetus of me looking into this. So I do have some information on this cult and what have you. And yes, that ties directly back to Carlos Slim, but not necessarily the blood collection business of this industry. Now, for all you people that say that this isn't true, we're going to get into the science, and I'm going to get into, it's going to become redundant very soon because we're going to discuss patents. We're going to discuss all the studies. Let me tell you something. The people that talk about this stuff are not your average people. They're all college professors. Every single country out there, every university of every single country, prestigious institutions, all focus on this technology because advanced cement or advanced concrete is a critical item in any civilization. So certainly developing more advanced forms of this material are critical. Now, we were also looking at Roman cement. Of course, Roman cement was the thing that our first clue that we needed to look at, and before we even realized that it was actually something that's still being done. Now, the reason that Roman cement was such a big deal is that obviously whatever recipe the Romans used to make the concrete that they used to build their things like the Colosseum or the big amphitheaters, things like this, but not just that, but also pilings for docks and places where this concrete would come into contact with seawater. This is where they really excelled. Obviously, salt that's in the seawater is a very, very harsh thing to the concrete. This is known as the chloride. You're going to see that chloride and the absorption of chloride is one of the key things to the destruction of concrete, next to the absorption of water. So water absorption and chloride absorption, salt absorption, are the two main tests that they use for creating this durable, super durable, long-lasting concrete. So we're going to be talking about that a lot. One of the other things we're going to talk about is calcium chloride. Calcium chloride is another component that actually is used to speed up the setting process. I had an experience, I'm just going to throw out there real quick, with calcium chloride, because after the initial fall of, when Saddam went down after the Kuwait expedition, I had a contact that through his spies where basically, I'm pretty sure it was him, but they wanted to buy a tanker. When I say a tanker, I mean a big ship with containers on it, and the containers would be filled with this calcium chloride, which is this material that they required. And so I was negotiating that deal, but it was going to go to Singapore. And I guess Singapore is just a hop, skip, and a jump away from Iraq. So it was kind of a midway point. But I asked them, what are you going to do with the calcium chloride? They said, well, it's very critical in the refining industry. I thought, oh, okay. That sounds like it has something to do with the chemical processes of making petroleum, right? Well, I find out the other thing it's used for is for making hardening cement, namely bunkers. I thought, oh, well, he's trying to make a bunch of bunkers and stuff, and he needs a bunch of stuff to do that. That's what Saddam really has going on here. Well, Then I find out, well, sure, it can also be used in the refining industry, but it's mainly for filling holes. Okay? So in other words, calcium chloride is very similar to cement already. In other words, it's like a foamy agent that can be used very much like you would use polyurethane to fill in or to backfill well holes or caverns or cavities or things that need filling that might be hard to get to, like bunkers maybe, things that are deep underground. Huh, that's interesting. Deep underground. Yes, it's very important for stuff that's deep underground. So, what we're finding out, well, let's see. Let's just go to the very beginning. Where shall we start? Before I get into all the technical stuff, well, I'll tell you what. Yeah, I will. I'll do that right away. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about there is a patent. Let me see if I can. There it is. There's a patent. All right. Now, this patent was issued to a guy named Charles Leilman. Worldwide patent was issued in 1976. Okay. Now, it just expired here recently in 2019. All right. Worldwide expired in 2019. Now, this is kind of interesting because you think about what's going on in the world around this time. Okay. All right. Anyway, here's his patent. U.S. Patent 420-3674A. The use of blood in cement, mortar, and concrete industry for obtaining a lightened material. Abstract. The present invention relates to the use of blood in construction and building industry, whereby blood and extracts of blood containing hemoglobin are used as air in training colloids. The recommended process for preparing a lightening material consists in associated construction element chosen from the cements, mortars, and concretes with at least one air-intaining colloid chosen from whole blood globules, red blood corpuscles, and hemoglobin. The invention also relates to the lightened material obtained according to this process. All right. The present invention relates to the novel use of blood, and more particularly the application of blood in cement, mortar, and concrete industry as a means for lightening the construction and for increasing heat insulation. It also relates to the process for the preparation of light material with the aid of blood, as well as the products obtained according to said process. Now, they talk about the density, they go into the density, they talk about various articles and what have you by various different scientists involving this sort of thing. And we're going to show throughout history how this works, but basically what this means is that the blood and the fat, there's also fat being used, because plasma and what have you, there's certain amounts of this stuff. All the ingredients in blood, it's all stuff that you want in concrete. But when it mixes with the lime that's part of the concrete, and we're going to talk a lot about lime, it becomes soap or a suffocant, an ionized suffocant. And that creates bubbles. And these little bubbles obviously cause spaces within the concrete, and they lighten it. Now, also, when you think of blood and you think of corpuscles and red, tiny, what is it? The blood they're actually little globules of red stuff, hemoglobin. Each one of those little pieces of hemoglobin is going to decay, and it's going to create this gas inside of the cement or an air pocket, and this is what they want. But what it also does is it significantly softens the cement. And you might think, well, why would you want it softer? Yes, the hardness of the cement does go down. But In exchange for that, it absorbs water at least 50% less. The water doesn't soak in so much. And the salt in the water soaks in at least 50% less also. Now, salt can basically get into the cement and cause a change in pH, what can cause rebar and supports to corrode. And obviously, if you're trying to make your bridge or your bunker or whatever last a long time, you don't want that. Imagine how much blood went into the Hoover Dam. Anyway. Now, so there's this patent, okay? And you can see this. Now, one of the things that they have to do when they're putting this stuff into this concrete is they have to mix it up like in a blender. And they have a certain RPMs, 100, 200 RPMs, whatever, and they have certain amounts of the blood. It could be either 1%, 5%, or 10%. Yes, it's actually that much of quantity. But a minimum, blood in concrete is always going to be a minimum of 1% by weight to 0.1% by weight. So it's going to be slightly less than 1% of the actual weight of the concrete is going to be blood, preferably liquid. Now, when they process this stuff with the globules, corpuscles, white blood, everything in it, thrombocytes, etc., plasma, hemoglobin, it makes the cement kind of foamy and light, and they put it into these pumps, and they can pump it through those pipes great distances away, even underground. And like I said, they can use this stuff just like you might use polyurethane to fill in holes and crevices to make these tunnel walls and these bunkers, because they can fill in crevices between rock and cement and what have you, and it works really well. It doesn't expand. The thing is also it can expand and contract better without cracking. Obviously, that's something you want. And the fact that it's lighter, that's probably something you might want too. If you're building multiple floors in a deep underground structure, you might want those floors maybe not to weigh too much. So it's stronger, lighter, expansion and contraction, has a higher level of expansion contraction. They call that a thermal expansion coefficient, high thermal expansion coefficient. Waterproof and saltproof. All that comes with blood. And also you get a nice red color if you do it right. Okay. So anyway, there you go. There's the patent. Now, again, I'm going to go back farther and farther, but every country has done this. Okay, here's an experimental study of pig blood lime mortar used in ancient architecture in China. Now, basically, what this is a scientific paper put out by the Chinese guy named Zhang Zhang, Lang Zhao, Li Zhang, whatever. 2014, they put this out. Comparison of the impact of protein preparation in modern factory-produced admixture on the air entrainment structure of cement paste relating to modern and historical aspects. Performance of mortar. So basically, what does that mean? These guys are trying to figure out how to recreate some mortar and what have you being used in old structures, and they had to use pig blood to do it. All right, so let's see what they say. Here's the abstract for this paper. Portland cement, which is the basic ingredient of concrete, we'll discuss that, has low chemical and physical affinity for traditional building materials. This hinders the restoration of historical buildings and modern rustic architecture where blue bricks are used. pig blood lime mortar is one of the most important technological inventions in the Chinese architectural history. Mortar in this work was fabricated according to the formulas of the literature, and some analyses were conducted for further understanding their microstructure. Environmental scanning electron microscope was utilized to analyze mechanisms of interaction between key components of ancient mortar bonding materials. Results show that pig blood accelerates the formation of microstructure at early stage. Pig blood plays a role of biological templates which regulates the growth of calcium carbonate crystal. That's salt. All right, so that's Chinese. Now, of course, the Romans, we're going to talk about the Romans. We're going to be kind of going backwards in time here because the Romans are the ones that are most famous for this, but we're going to show that it's also all over the world. At the same time, we're going to show that this collection of the blood and the whole, once we show that this is actually a ritual, then we're going to show the connection to all these various rituals throughout all these various cultures. But obviously in Rome, they needed to have stuff that would stand up. And when they built their aqueducts, they certainly needed something that was impervious to water and would not, could expand and contract and do all these things and not leak. So what do we have here? We have, let's see. Here's a publication, Building Conservation. Again, it's all about recreating these old architectures. Cathedral Communications Limited. The use of admixtures or additives that can improve either the plastic working properties or the final performance of mortars, renders, and screeds has taken place for over 2,000 years in the UK, thanks to the Romans, who brought with them their sophisticated understanding of adding blood, milk, and fats to lime mortars. This knowledge allowed them to build all manner of structures and buildings, from using waterproofed mortars for aqueducts and baths to making self-leveling lime concrete screeds using super plasticizers. Self-leveling, that's one of the things you need in a bunker. When you squirt that stuff in there, you can't really get in there and vibrate it and work it. You need to have it flatten out, and kind of like water, you need to have it flow and achieve a nice flat surface all by itself. That's what they're talking about here. Now, they talk about using bull's blood, which of course was a common thing, very common. They're still doing it. They're still using bull's blood quite a bit. And the thing is that a lot of people consider, they consider the byproducts of the slaughterhouses a hazardous waste, or something that has got to be washed away and disposed of. So one of the things you're going to see, which is almost, it's kind of symbiotic, is that when it comes to making cement or concrete or building, you're going to see that very often they always incorporate what you would call hazardous waste, be it a biological waste of blood products, or be it pollution products that are removed from industry. Two of these products that are very big are silica fume. And silica fume, of course, is a byproduct of, let's see, where do they get the silica fume? Well, it's a byproduct. I can't remember exactly which industry it is, but it's hazardous waste. Typically, silica fume would be, which is like a fine white powder, would be put into landfills or something of this nature, but they've learned how to put it into the cement. But of course, it requires blood. So here's a paper. Let's see who put out this paper. This is put out by Transstellar Research and Consultancy, International Journal of Civil, Structural, Environmental, and Infrastructure Engineering, Research and Development, blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay, this is Britain. Oh, no, yeah. No. This was written in Mosul, Iraq. All right. Now, obviously, they produce a lot of this stuff over there. It's one of the reasons why we went to war with them, because we can't have countries that are, advanced. But they found ways of improving the properties of concrete by using blood and silica fume. Okay. Ox blood. Another thing that they use other than silica fume is fly ash. You may have heard about that, fly ash. What is fly ash? Fly ash is a derivative of the coal industry. So you're going to see where they're producing places where there's big coal plants, you're going to see them having a cement plant very close by, because they'll take this fly ash, which is what comes out of the filters. Instead of having all the coal smoke from producing their coal go up into the sky, they catch it with these filters. They recycle it and they sell it to these people that are making cement. All right. Now, all of this is interesting because a couple things. Now, again, I don't want to get too far away from the blood, but there's a lot of extremely large environmental issues with this concrete, not the least of which is the carbon dioxide. Everybody bitches about carbon dioxide. These people that are bitching about this global warming and all this nonsense that say that carbon taxes and all this crap. One of the number one causes of carbon dioxide going into the atmosphere is concrete and concrete production and concrete structures that have already been created that sit there and do nothing but continue to outgas carbon dioxide their entire lifetime. Such is the nature of concrete. Now, something close to 20-25% of all the carbon dioxide pollution, if you want to call it that, that's being put into the atmosphere is coming from concrete and carbon production, or concrete production. The very first step that does this is the creation of the lime, or quicklime, which is necessary to cause the binding of the mortar. Now, quicklime is nothing more than limestone, which is that white rock you find out there. And they take that limestone and they cook it. They put it in a fire, a kiln, and they get that kiln up to 3,000 degrees. Now, obviously, that takes a lot of burning stuff to get anything up to that heat, and that's going to produce a lot of pollution and a lot of carbon dioxide. And when they heat up this rock, the rock gives off carbon dioxide. The final product is called quicklime, and this is what they use. They mix it with water, and they use this to make cement. So right away, the entire process of using this stuff causes that to happen. Now, what does it have to do with blood? Nothing. However, why is this important? Because the use of hemp, and I'm not talking about hempcrete, which is lime and hemp, but I'm talking about the use of hemp powder mixed in with the concrete, would provide all of these wonderful properties that the blood is doing now, as well as mitigate the carbon dioxide that's being given off by the lime in the cement. Let's go to the ancient history. Does that sound like fun? Let me pull that up. Now here we go. I want to go back to the blood stuff and cement. All right. Now, first of all, it's easy to find all sorts of references to mixing the blood with the cement in ancient history. Obviously, the Romans are a perfect example. It's well known. And we find out that the Greeks also did this. And like we just found out, the Chinese and other cultures have also done this. And then we look at even more primitive, savage cultures have also done this. We find it even in the Philippines. But if we try to go back further than the Greeks and the Romans and the Etruscans or whoever, Hittites, we get further back. The most ancient reference to this that we can find comes from the Vedic literature, which is Hindu. And typically, we associate this stuff with the Vimnas and with the pre-Andiluvial or pre-flood epoch, the previous epoch to the one that we're in right now, the one that Atlantis was part of. So this is ancient stuff. Now, in order to try to access some of this Vedic literature, we're going to go to the Journal of the Royal Asiatic Society of Great Britain and Ireland. Now, if you need to find out what that's all about, go ahead. But needless to say, I'm sure they're not exactly good Christian. But we're going to talk about the Christian stuff, too, here very soon. But let's see what these guys have to say. Now, these are just parts of a much larger book, of course. This is actually page 944 of this book, Modern Theories of Religion and the Veda. Let me just read through some of this because it's actually a couple pages, and I'll probably skip through a few things like this, but what's important is that you're going to see these references to blood and cement. Okay. Let's see here. Find a good place to start for you. Well, they talk about sacrifice. Okay, let me just go up here because, all right, this is good. I forgot about this. I gotta go up now. Darn it. All right. When we talk about the blood, the cow, here. First of all, people, obviously, in the United States here, a lot of animals are slaughtered. We know a lot of animals are slaughtered. You guys, you vegans especially, you know what I'm talking about. You know that massive amounts of animals are slaughtered, and there's the whole processes that go into this. But nothing is wasted. Obviously, they are collecting the blood from these animals, and when they do it, they're doing it really quickly. In other words, it's just they're not exactly killing the animals and letting them rot a little bit before they remove the blood. The blood is still warm when they're getting it out there. It's got a lot of life energy in it. All right, I want to make sure I start close up to the top, but basically what we're talking about is blood rituals. Yeah. Okay. A little while back, we talked about the ascending goddess ritual and how just about every one of these modern satanic things was having to do with this ascending goddess ritual, going back to Isis and all that. Now this is older than Isis, okay? Much, much older. And they have this thing that they call basically the... it's like similar to the goddess ritual, except they're actually killing off a king. Now, the Buddhists also do something similar, and this has to do with a cleansing ritual, and we're going to we're going to get to that. But we should mention also that what we're talking about right here, this is Semitic, okay? This is called a sacrament, but it's a Semitic sacrament, and it is eating part of the victim. All right, so eating part of the victim by the god is in itself a means of becoming one with the deity. Okay, so this is like eating of the king or eating of the whatever, the sacrifice. When you all eat of it, you become one. When you eat a plant, you thank the plant because the plant has now become one with you. Its energy has become one with you. When you share it with everybody, that energy becomes shared with everyone. This is a very, very important concept. the god, in the ritual, the god enters into the animal. All right. It's filled with the animal that you're eating is filled with the divine essence. So by eating the animal, you're having a direct means of fellowship. Okay. Now, if you look at all these meals that are sacramental meals and what have you, this is what that is. That's a ritual. These are ancient rituals. Here's a quote: "Let him eat nothing without having cut off a portion thereof. In entertaining strangers, flesh is to be served, and precisely as in Homer, we find that every meal is also a sacrifice. Eating of the remnants of a sacrifice is enjoined in the," well, this is a ritual, I can't pronounce it, "remnants of food belonging to the manes, the gods, the guests, and the servants may be eaten by the Snataka." Anyway, again, this is Hindu stuff. "There can be no doubt that the conception of offerings to them was a meal. So you guys have got to understand, even the simple meals are part of a ritual. Well, they go on to talk about Poseidon in the Greek religion and Delphi and Apollo. But they did the same thing. The oracles of Delphi did the same thing. They ate flesh and blood. So did the priests of Apollo. Anyway. So let me get back to this part here. "So by sharing the same food and eating the remains of the food tasted by them would be felt as if they were bringing about a particularly close union." Think about that with the Last Supper. Now, this may be compared to the taboo, so common in savage tribes, where the remains of the food eaten by the chief, who is considered as a possessor of powerful spiritual influence, which is communicated to the food which he partakes and renders it dangerous for a commoner to taste. Let's see. Again, in the sacrifice to another deity, all the relatives eat the remains of the offering made to the bull, which here represents the god. Let's see. And then the sacrificer, of course, gets a portion. "If this cannot be done, the sacrificer may eat the whole or throw it into the water. The latter alternative clearly indicates the holy nature of the food which has given the gods have partaken. Other instances are common, which is probably the result of the practice of the sacramental meal, where we find the custom of feeding the Brahmas, I guess these are the holy guys, on many occasions, either with actual parts of the sacrifice or with other food." Let's see. Oh, come on, I'm trying to get you some good stuff here. Let's see. Now, okay, here we go. "In India, the blood of the victims was deemed an offering to demons and therefore impure, but in fact, the blood seems to have been considered too sacred for consumption by the worshippers and to have been regarded as an offering to the earth goddess, represented all over the world by snakes." I got to get to this. I kind of lost the part where they're putting the blood in the cement here. So let me see if I can find it, because this keeps on going on and on and on. But let me see if I can find that part here. Oh no. Well, let me just go from my memory here. But this is the thing. They have specific recipes for these rituals. It's very similar to the ascending goddess ritual, where they would kill a man, a woman, a child, a crone, and this would all symbolize a life or event, a process. these guys do the same thing. And let's see. They might have, they'll use a human, they'll use a horse, they'll use a cow, they'll use a goat, and what have you. And they all add up. So in other words, to perform the ritual, you need all of these components. So certainly in the United States, we have the mortuary business. They can produce all sorts of human blood. What is all the blood from people? We know darn well that all the blood from these humans is being drained and being treated as some sort of a biological waste product. The same thing with the abortion industry. I wish I could find this part where they talk about it. But one of the other things that they do is that they'll use the heads of their victims, and I'm talking humans now, and they will actually put them into the floors and the foundations of their buildings. And this, of course, would compel these people to have to watch over everything. Let's see. Yeah, I am not finding that part about putting it into mixing it into the cement. Darn it. All right. Well, I'm going to go on and talk about the Bible here a little bit and the biblical parts of it. But in the Bible, especially in the Eucharist, the blood is actually considered a cement. It's always considered a cement. All right. Akin. So let me find it. Let's see if I can get you the close. I'm going to look at some sections on the Eucharist here. And let's see. Akin, remarks H. Robertson Smith, Religion of the Semites, was a group of persons whose lives were so bound up together in that what must be called physical unity that they could be treated as parts of one common life. The members of a kindred looked upon themselves as one living whole, a single animated mass of blood, flesh, and bones, which no member could be touched without the other member suffering. We find the conception current that any food which two men partake of together so that the same substance enters into their flesh and blood is enough to establish some sacred unity of life between them. But in ancient times, this significance seems to be always attached to participation in the flesh of a sacrosanct victim, and the solemn mystery of its death is justified by the consideration that only in this way can the sacred cement be procured, which creates or keeps alive a living bond of union between the worshipers and their God. This cement is nothing else than the actual life of the sacred and kindred animal, which is conceived as residing in its flesh, but specifically in its blood. And so, in the sacred meal, is actually distributed among all of the participants, each of whom incorporates a particle of it within his own individual life. All right, and of course this goes on. The above conveys the cycle of ideas within which Paul's reflection worked. Christ, who knew no sin, had been made sin and sacrificed for us because as if it were a new Passover, by a mysterious sympathy, the bread and wine over which the words, "This is my body, which is for you, and this cup is the new covenant in my blood," had been uttered, became Christ's body and blood, so that by partaking of these, the faithful were united with each other and with Christ into one kinship. They became the body of Christ, and his blood or life was in them, and they were members of him. Participation in the Eucharist gave actual life, and it was due to their irregular attendance at it that many members of the Corinthian church were weak and sickly, and not a few slept or had died, as the author has already cited. The notion that by eating flesh, or particularly by drinking the blood of another living being, a man absorbs its nature or life into his own, in one which appears among primitive peoples in many forms. And I can go on, but I think you can probably understand what I'm saying here. But all of these sacred blood covenants, they're everywhere. Now, the thing about the blood in the cement, the Eucharist shows us that the actual life essence is in the blood. In the Bible, in Genesis, when Cain kills Abel, and God says, "Where's Abel, Cain?" Cain says, "I don't know." And God said, "His blood cries out to me from the earth." Kind of sounds like he was still alive. The life, the soul, that which made him the entity that he was in his blood. When the blood left the body, it changed. It took the soul with it. I want to bring up that experiment that the doctor did a while back where he measured the bodies after the people died. And, of course, a lot of people think this was inconclusive, didn't really mean anything. But I still think it's interesting to look at because I think we can still learn from this if we view it knowing what we know. Now, he had 5 or 6 subjects that he put through this test. And one of them, of course, was the one that lost roughly 21 grams of weight immediately after death. And he used that as his answer. But the other people had some fluctuations where they didn't lose anything, or they would lose a little, and then a little bit later they would lose more. And he also tried to prove that animals didn't have souls by doing the same experiment with a dog, several dogs. I assume he poisoned the dogs. But the dogs showed no sign of their body weight changing, unlike the humans. So I suspect that this has something to do with gravity, because as I've said, that your soul or your life, when you're doing the service to others versus service to self, you're actually losing gravity. You're losing weight. And I expect that your soul probably reflects that. So when someone is dying, I suspect that any changes or variation like that would have to do with changes in the specific gravity of the biological material that actually was in the blood that makes up the soul. So in other words, whether or not you are redeemed or condemned might determine the amount of the specific gravity of your blood, if you will, or your soul. Now, I told you I was going to talk about other cultures, but obviously I'm very anti-blood in any religious practice whatsoever. I've always said that if there's blood involved, it's of Satan. And certainly the blood in the cement is also of Satan. Again, back to the Vedic literature, they said one of the reasons for doing this was to please the demons. Okay? So this is all about pleasing the demons. Now, there's a ritual that the Hebrews do involving the Day of Atonement, where they, and the Day of Atonement, of course, is where they ask for forgiveness in advance for all the sins that they plan on committing over the next year. But one of the things they'll do is they'll take a chicken, and the Orthodox person that's doing this will take this chicken, and they'll swing the chicken around their head in a circle 3 times, and they'll recite a prayer. I guess you want to call it a prayer. I assume it's in Hebrew. And basically this prayer says something to the extent of, make me clean, take away all my sins, transfer them to this bird, I will live forever, something like this, and such. And then the chicken is handed to the rabbi standing nearby, and the rabbi, of course, has a big cleaver or something, and he chops the head off the chicken. Chop! Very violent. And supposedly, the chicken carcass is given to the poor, whoever that is, I wonder, or it's a equivalent amount of money is donated. In other words, the person that has this chicken, killed the poor chicken, to get their sins cleaned, will give the rabbi some money to pay for the chicken, which is some sort of a token offering. Now, as you can imagine, this poor chicken sitting in that cage waiting for this to happen, and then finally being handed to somebody who grabs it by the feet and starts swinging it around their head at high speed. This probably scares the shit out of the chicken, literally. But I'm sure that the poor chicken makes a lot of noise while this is going on, flapping the wings. It knows it's going to die pretty quick. I always thought that swinging it around in the circle is what killed it. I didn't really realize that, no, they actually have to chop its head off afterwards. I guess swinging it around a circle might make it dizzy, so it's that much easier to chop its head off. That might be part of it. But either way, it's all about loosh and collecting that loosh. Did you know that in blood banks, when you go to give your plasma and stuff, half the times you go in there and they'll be playing horror movies? Why do you think they're doing that? Well, I wanted to talk more about cement. We've already hit the hour spot here. And there's just so much left to talk about. I wanted to talk about the Buddhist, because, you think the Buddhists don't have anything like this going on, but they do too. But there's one ritual in Buddhism. Obviously, not too many people do it, but it's a cleansing ritual. And basically, it involves focusing on death. And typically, the person that performs this ritual, they think they call it the Sikad, something like that, will go to a place where there will be corpses being devoured by vultures, or the river where the bodies are burned, and dumped into the Ganges or something like this. And you're supposed to sit there and meditate on this. But during the process of this meal, you call upon the universe. And when I say universe, I'm talking about the entities that are out there, and this includes demons. I'm not going to go through the entire ritual, but when you've assembled these entities around you, these spirits, you do this visualization where you are actually visualizing chopping yourself up into pieces and serving these pieces of you to these entities. And this is what they call, I think, cutting the cord, meaning that this is it's part of this cleansing process. So, but it's very morbid, this whole thing. Now, I'm trying to condense this as quick as possible because, like I said, we hit the hour mark. But one of the things that I noticed, when we do the remote viewing and stuff, is we're dealing with multiple different entities and multiple different densities. So when you think about why do they need this biological stuff? What's with this sacred stuff going on with all this concrete? Especially with these bunkers, because, C-Mex and Carlos Slim, and I haven't even gotten into him yet and all that, and Nixon, but why so much blood? Yes, it makes it easier to build this stuff, but you know what else it does? It makes it harder. What it does is it's almost like making this material alive. It's like a sacred wall. It's like magic. Remember, this is all magic. And having the blood of so many entities and so many animals and so many humans mixed into this concrete with their body fat and their bones and everything else, it makes it so that other entities cannot pass through it. And I can just tell you that when we are going through these things, we have to use doors. We have to open doors. We have to unlock locks. We don't walk through walls. We have to open doors. We have to go down elevators. Now, I know this is why they do that. Okay? The blood in the cement makes structures that do not just serve our third density. Apparently, the use of human tissue and animal tissue and the rituals that are performed in the process of these buildings makes them of use in multiple different densities. It's just like I've always said, a lock on the door in the Getty has to work in multiple levels. It can't just be a 3D lock. It also has to be a 4D, 5D, etc. This is how they do it with the magic. All right, let's see. What else do I want to tell you? Okay, before we go into this, I'm going to bring up C-Mex here real quick. But yes, obviously, C-Mex is one of the largest cement companies in the world. There's actually three very, very big ones. And they're certainly all very much connected. And they're certainly very much involved in all the politics that's happening in the world. And yes, Chinese cement is a competitor for these other cement companies. But when you consider how evil these monopolies that have been running these cement factories for all these years are, it's almost hard to, obviously we know that the Chinese are using who knows how much blood in their cement, possibly all the blood from the victims of the Falun Gong. But as far as the Nixivim cult is concerned, we do know that the son of Carlos Salinas de Gortari was a very high-ranking member of this cult, one of the people that was brainwashed. And it turns out that the daughter of probably the number one newspaper in Mexico was also involved in this cult. So both of these people got together with Carlos Slim and had a meeting. Now, Carlos Slim, of course, is the majority stockholder in the New York Times, and that doesn't give him any editorial control. However, after they had this meeting between those three individuals, the New York Times immediately created a expose involving the cult, the Nixon cult. So, of course, that's what led to them being taken down. there's a few other interesting things about all that, and that is that I believe it was Ecuador that the cult was very active. We know that the Smallville actress had spent some time in Ecuador, which is interesting because of all the mafia activity that we know that goes on in these countries. So a lot of people point fingers. They wonder what this is. Of course, I think this is competing mafias, but it's really hard to tell because obviously Carlos Slim is the enemy, and you have to wonder who was really controlling this cult, especially since this cult seems to be used as the a scapegoat for so much nowadays. All right, here, I'm going to go take a break, but before I do, I just want to say one more thing, and that is that if it's true that the concrete everywhere, under our feet, in the buildings, especially in the bunkers below us and the tunnels and what have you, have the blood and bones and everything of the victims, and not just that, but also the blood of all of these animals that have died horribly, and that this is all producing some sort of karmic loosh structure, which seems to be what's going on here. Is this really something we want in our lives? And if that's the case, if this is truly toxic, and trust me, it is toxic because, hell, fly ash, we were talking about the fly ash and is one of the ingredients that they wanted to use. I should mention, let me see if I can find you the list of some of the horrible things that's in the fly ash. Here we go. It's horrible. Minor constituents of fly ash, depending on the coal bed composition, may include one or more of the following elements: arsenic, beryllium, boron, cadmium, chromium, hexavalent chromium, cobalt, lead, manganese, mercury, molybdenum, selenium, strontium, thallium, vanadium, along with very small concentrations of dioxins. Yeah, that's the fly ash. So, doesn't that sound familiar? Here they are, putting this horrible, horrible stuff in these buildings all around us. It's all toxic. Anyway, but it does appear that the hemp thing really is important, because all that concrete that's out there, as I said, generates tons and tons of carbon dioxide. It gives it off. It emits it. It creates tons of carbon dioxide to create it, and after it's made, as it cures and ages, it gives off carbon dioxide. So if that's something that we don't want, obviously we need to do something about that and use hemp instead. And I certainly think that if there's an industry in our country, in our world, that's been going on for this long, that uses huge amounts of fresh blood, I think normal people would realize that this is vampiric, and that's not what we are. All right? So I don't know about you, but I don't need that kind of karma around me, to be honest with you. I'd rather have weaker cement. All right, let's go ahead and take a break, and if anybody wants to join us after that, we'll go for it, okay? All right, are you there?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Truthcat Radio Network, truthcatradio.com. The Stephen D. Kelley Show, Thursdays, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Western. Twitter, @1 Stephen D. Kelley. Hashtag #OccupyDaiGetty. Eternal Mother, Father God, creators of this universe, please hear this day our petition. Surround us now with your divine ring of fire, the fire of your protection, the fire of your abundance, the fire of complete healing, the fire of divine abundance. I now command the hands of Almighty God on our behalf, this very moment. Let it be so in the blessed name of our Creator and His sovereign Son, Jesus Christ, and thy Holy Spirit. So be it. The 6th day of June, the year is 2019. Yes, us, we the people, rise up to demand to order the Marine Corps to be called to occupy the Getty, liberate Pedo facility, and rescue the child sex slaves under the Getty Center in LA and worldwide bunkers. Please, universe, shut down the elite mafia, free our sex child slaves and return them to the surface. Free high-tech medicine, clean environment, clean Fukushima. Free energy, speed of light computer that implode as beneficial lightsabers. Please, by sunset, any place you are on Earth, please, by sunset, take a moment to meditate, visualizing peace on Earth. True unconditional love to victims and perpetrators. Healing love as holy human shield, bringing fresh air of light and bunches of love to rescue and free the children, technology, and heal the oceans. It is up to the 2nd hour, and now you're welcome to a toll-free phone number, area code Los Angeles 714-598-3125. Feel free to ask any question you could possibly think of. Get involved or say hello to Dr. Kelley. Just let the phone ring once or twice. Please hang up, and Dr. Kelley will call you back right away. The same goes for a Skype address, Stephen.D.Kelley, Anaheim, California. Send a message to join the show, and Dr. Kelley shall connect you right away. Please mute until you are called upon to speak. People, be advised that TruthCat Radio broadcast is entirely listener-supported. Your contributions are highly appreciated and welcome. If you are well able to contribute to his operating budget, please use PayPal account, StephenKelley714@gmail.com. StevEnKelley 714@gmail.com. In order to receive your entire financial support and subject, please indicate friends or family. Very grateful to you for supporting his efforts, and thank you in advance for your attention to this matter. Please do not use the PayPal account email for any correspondence. Thank you to regulars and last-minute contributions. Thank you for unconditional love. And patreon.com/StephenDKelley, a fund-grounded site, patreon.com, where you could set an amount of monthly financial support directed to TruthCat Radio and Stephen D. Kelley. Thank you. Email law17gun@aol.com. On YouTube, please click thumbs up. You could leave a nice comment and share. Haven't you joined on Facebook? Please do so at TruthCat Radio and Occupy the Getty public group, Q-Anon, where you are able to find several files to read. Very kind of you all. The book, Dr. Kelley's book, Cities Under the Plane on Amazon, for about $5, and the PDF version on emailing the author. For joining us, thank you very much. TruthCat Radio and Dr. Stephen D. Kelley and Q-Anon, thank you. Dr. Kelley, I saw that you have a new White House petition. And yeah, it's related to the Getty. So if you like to know more, you could join and look for the videos on how to remote view under the Getty. This is with the Lady of Light. And remembering everybody about our problem in Fukushima nuclear disaster, where we are about already, yeah.
Oh.
Well, with high levels of radiation.
I heard you talk about Lady of Light. I'm like, what? What?
Well, remote viewing under the Getty.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we done? Oh.
Yes, Doctor.
Aye. Okay. Hi, everybody. Oh, okay. Let's see. There was something I wanted to say. Well, gosh, there's a bunch of things I wanted to say, but that I didn't get to. But like, for instance, when you look at the cathedrals in France, the great cathedrals and what have you, any of these old buildings, just imagine what it was like building these things. Okay, what they would do in the morning, they'd mix up all their mortar. And the first thing they would do is they would bring about 6 bulls into the middle of the market square, and they would slice their throats and collect the blood. And then that's what they would use to mix their mortar. And they would do this every day. And of course, it gave it color, but it also protected it, made it last long. Obviously, we look at these buildings, they're still there. In the Philippines, they have a ritual. I wrote about it. But they can't even kill, or they can't even build anything without blood. And they'll sit there and they'll do everything they can. I mean, they still do modern inspections and everything, but they do this ritual. And the ritual is basically where they kill a chicken or some other animal, and they'll sprinkle the blood around the foundation or around the building area. But this is where it comes from. It goes back to this concept of the blood being required. Let's see, what else I want to tell you guys. There was something else about this concrete stuff I wanted to share with you. Now would be a good time for questions. Let me just go back to pull up all my information and see if there's anything here that I missed that I wanted to throw at you here. Chloride penetration, that's a salt. I've got all these statistics here. Well, here's something I'm just going to read to you here. And this is basically the conclusions of a very comprehensive test involving ox blood in cement. And this was done, of course, by quite a few scientists, primarily Chinese. But they say, these are the 4 conclusions. The addition of ox blood reduces the strength of concrete. This strength decrease can be at least partly compensated by reduction of the water-cement ratio. Capillary absorption of water can be reduced by the addition of ox blood. This will increase frost resistance of concrete and durability in permanent contact with water. Chloride penetration into concrete can be significantly reduced by the addition of ox blood to the fresh mix of concrete. This protective measure will increase service life of reinforced concrete structures. This is modern stuff in a marine environment. Addition of ox blood to concrete is an economical and at the same time an ecological measure to improve durability and service life of reinforced concrete structures in aggressive environments. So it's cheap because it's waste product. And it's ecological because it gives them something to do with a waste product. So there you go. I think the industry produces something like 100,000 gallons of ox blood or cow blood every so many days. It's ridiculous. We're talking trucks, tankers full of this stuff. Now, as I mentioned, even modern concrete, every bit of it out there, for all you naysayers that think this is a bunch of BS, has at least 0.1% or more, up to 1% of blood in it. Now, this is interesting because, we talk about the magic involved, and sometimes magic and chemistry and physics, they all sort of collide in this wonderful way. And whenever you find something that's linear, it kind of lends to that. You know, the universe is linear. And I'm finding that the components that are actually in the blood, the ratio of the amount of those components in the blood to the bulk of the blood compared to the ratio of the blood going into the cement is, once again, linear, about 1%, roughly. So there's three things that they found that seem to be very helpful in the cement. Let's see. Salt, of course, is a negative, but at the same time it's used, it does have an application. Even though they want to remove it, it's still part of it. Another is sugar. They certainly found, the Chinese found that by mixing rice and starch and carbohydrates, mostly starch, but what is starch? It's sugar. And of course, they use sticky rice. Ancient Chinese cement had sticky rice in it, the mortar, and that made it more plastic, but it was sugar. So you've got salt, sugar. Let's see, what's that other thing that the blood has a lot of? Iron. It's got iron. What else? Let's see. Gosh, I can't remember. One thing that's interesting is that ionic charges have a lot to do with this. So in other words, if the human blood has a positive charge or a negative charge for the blood corpuscles, this is going to cause a reaction to the components inside the concrete. Gosh, I wish I could remember what that other component was that's in the blood. Let me think about that for a second. Obviously, when we talk about excess sugar, that's the insulin and the energy. And here's another interesting concept, is that when you consume sugar, it's stored, or starch, it's stored, the sugar from that is stored in your fat. And that's energy. And when your body requires energy, it burns that sugar. It retrieves that energy from the fat. Now remember, they're putting the fat in the concrete too. So your life is in the blood and your energy is in the fat. Amazing, isn't it? Oh, that's right, calcium. Calcium, of course. They want calcium in concrete. Of course they want calcium in concrete. That's what concrete is. Your blood has calcium, right? How much? A little bit. We certainly have calcium in our body. So we have fat, calcium, sugar, iron, salt, and, whatever, all these other things. This is all stuff that you want to have in the cement. And yet, it's funny because, like I said, the ratios of that are similar to the ratios of the amount of blood that goes into the concrete. So I love that linear stuff. What else can I tell you about that? It's amazing that when they look at this, the chloride, these tests for the chloride and the water retention and all that, the difference between 5% ox blood and 10% ox blood versus 0% ox blood, they're relatively similar. Adding a little bit, in other words, it's like what they found is that you have to have a certain amount of it in there to achieve this effect. And then once you achieve this effect, it's not going to increase a whole lot. However, there's plenty of situations where they have actually made cement or made concrete where there is no water. They're using blood instead of water. Many of these recipes we're looking at, that's what they're doing. There's all sorts of other stuff. I'll tell you, there's another component that they're starting to work into the concrete that's interesting, and it's they're all trying to find ways to get around all this carbon dioxide business, and I think they're probably trying to find ways of getting around use of blood. But they use this thing, it's called like Chinese clay or metakaolin. Concrete made with metakaolin can be cast, finished, and cured in almost the same fashion as ordinary concrete made without it. Well, it doesn't say much. Basically, it's they use it for making extremely fine surfaces like countertops and things like this, because it's typically the material that they use for making bone china. So this is something that's working its way into the concrete business. The calcium chloride, it's interesting. You know, like I said, the calcium chloride was the component that they used to speed up the calcium curing process, but it also produces quite a bit of the carbon dioxide. So needless to say, they do everything they can to try to discourage people from using this stuff. Well, I'll tell you though, the bottom line is you can't argue with this, that they're still doing it. Not only are they still doing it, but there's so much science involved in it. There's a couple other things that they're doing that's kind of bizarre. I should mention, though, here's something that I found was really kind of scary, is that Cemex, the company Cemex, has blood drives inside of their company, their employees. They have blood drives for their employees. And on top of that, Carlos Slim, along with some other people, famous people associated with Clinton and Uranium One and what have you, are heavily involved with the organ donors programs and the convalescent places where they're dealing with old people, and also the homeless. And on top of that, the women and children that are in danger, vulnerable women and children. So all of those organizations are typical sources of people that can be removed without a lot of people noticing or complaining, and used for ritual. You know, I can't help it, people, but I got to go back to this whole Getty thing and this NSA business. But when those morons in that Crown Victoria identified themselves as NSA and took that guy and actually were stupid enough to say, what do you know about the Getty and how do you feel about the U.S. government, right away, they blew it. They blew it so hard. It pisses me off. Because right there, they incriminated my U.S. government as being part and parcel and complicit with the Getty, a known pedophile, in a structure that was made illegally using our money to house people that they rape, murder, and eat, and use the byproducts in the very building material. And when I think about the soul vaults down there and all the people that they kill and they eat and they drain their blood and they do these horrible things to, do you think their souls just float away from these events? Well, if what we're learning about concrete and life energy being in blood and in fat, I think it's safe to say that the reason why they've been putting this stuff into the mortar for millennia is to control the soul population of this planet. And I hate to think of the eons of souls, not just of humans, but of animals and other entities that have gone into this building. And when I think of Cain and Abel, and you remember it was Cain that built the first city. We're not supposed to be living in cities. We're probably not supposed to be making cement and slaughtering animals for that purpose. it's wonderful that they found an ecological usage for this product, but I think there's a problem here. I'm not ready to become a vegan yet, but this is the sort of thing that can really make you think twice about consuming a carcass. But at the same time, religiously speaking now, as a Christian, this business of sharing blood, partaking, that's a whole nother deal. They said that the holy man, influential holy man in different cultures, sometimes they would, and I'm not talking about savages now, but actually, ancient civilizations, the leader would cut himself under his left breast, and his followers would suck on this and drink the blood. Obviously, that's very vampiristic, but at the same time, this is exactly what that was. This was that concept of this whole consuming the king ritual and becoming one with the king. It's almost like, you're all going to be my family now. We're all going to be blood brothers. Like the Indians used to do. But the same thing, when they sit around and they torture an animal or a human and then they consume it, they're partaking in the kill. Part of the ritual is involving the care of the creature. Now, you're creating a totem. Now think of Baal. You already have these guys that worship this cow as some sort of god character, going back to some Babylonian thing. But when you care for this animal, just like you might care for a victim, you treat them like a prince, you treat them well, you feed them, you bathe them, you take care of them, up until that moment of you killing them. This is all part of the process. It's just like we said with the Ascending Goddess ceremony. It's the same thing. There was one more little thing I wanted to bring up about that, but man, does it slip quickly. All right, I know what I want to say. This murder and torture can do the same thing. And the ritual. Sometimes the ritual can be portrayed in public as a cleansing process. So on one hand, you have a cleaning, and on the other hand, you have a killing. So the killing becomes a cleaning, as exhibited with the Nazis. Now, obviously, in a place like Auschwitz, the victims were selected. So there was a pretense of medical expediency, as if we need to kill these few to save the others. Okay, so that was a psychology, that was a rationalization. And by having all of the troops and everybody involved in the operation assembled during this process, that made it a ritual. So when the train would pull up and they'd get all the Jews out of the train, and Mengele would walk down the row and he'd tap them this way, that way, and he'd choose who died now, who died later. That was all part of the ritual. This is also used to measure strength, measure fear, and measure, well, I want to say loyalty, I think. They call it a test of strength. Makes you part of it, though. Warfare is like that, obviously. It's the same thing. If you think of any warfare situation, they go through very similar tests of loyalty, tests of strength. Anyway, this is very common. Another reason why, ultimately, when we change everything, take over the world, we're going to have to do it in a way that doesn't involve a bunch of killing and blood. Now, there's a ritual that they do in Mexico. It's also probably done in other places of the Mesoamerica, Central America, South America. And it basically involves slaughtering goats. And when they do this, typically on one particular night, they might slaughter up to 5,000 goats. I don't remember the feast day or whatever that does this, but in the old days, of course, the blood from all these goats used to go right into the ground. And they would slice the goat, slice its neck, and then let it wander around and bleed to death, or they would stab it in the chest. And I'm sure this caused a lot of distress amongst the goats. But again, there's that pleasing the earth goddess. We know it's down there. So I don't know, people. That's bottom line. We got to find a replacement. We can't be doing this. We can't be doing this. If anything, we're going to have to find ways to undo the karma. I mean, I can't even imagine how we're going to, if there's truly souls and entities trapped in this building material all around us, how do we get them out? How do we release that? They tear down a cement building, they grind up the concrete, and they use that as aggregate, and they build another cement building with it. Whoops, we got a caller. Okay, let's see. 617, are you there? Turn off your radio.
I'm here.
Yeah. Hey, you got the radio in the background? Is this Bob?
No.
Oh, who's?
No,
Oh, it's Laura. Hey, Laura. Hi, Laura. Did you buy me food, Laura? I don't hear the. I don't hear the dog barking. What do I want? What do I want?
What do you want for dinner?
That cashew chicken's awful.
Okay, so
Cashew
we're dealing with.
Or no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hang on.
Industrial.
Hang on. I gotta get this out of my mouth first. I gotta get walnut shrimp. That's it. Walnut shrimp.
That's what you want? Okay.
That's lovely stuff. Okay, go ahead. Industrial harvesting of blood. Yes.
Of our fluids.
Yeah, body
And
fluids.
it's
Yes.
spirit cooking.
Hell yeah, it is.
So their magic is trying to corral our consent, right?
Well, the
And
consent.
what about the bloody wonderland? You know,
what about
that's
vaccines?
to another.
What about vaccines?
Exactly.
And what about all the fluids they're putting in the vaccines?
Exactly.
Uh-huh. How much blood, how much fetal material, how much crap like that. And we don't even know. It's not, remember, it's not just humans. It's monkeys. We're getting monkey blood in this, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Rat crap.
Yeah. Whatever pig, cow.
Dr. Strange loves these people.
Yeah, why do you think they're using all these animals? Because they're all required to perform the ritual.
Because there's spirit in our blood and in our fluids.
Well, it's part of the recipe. If they want the magic to work, they have to follow the recipe, and the recipe requires components from all these different animals.
Right. And then we've got the Freemasons who know the secret the secret doctrine, so to speak, and they create these buildings, and that started like with the Gothic cathedrals.
Well, this is way before
and
Masons.
Like you said,
this goes back to savages and cavemen. No, you know what? Let me just rephrase that. Okay, we know that this has been going on since before the flood, and we know that the society back before the flood was probably pretty advanced. We think of Atlantis as having high technology. So when the savages started putting blood in the cement, they didn't really know all the chemical reasons for doing it. They just knew that it was magic, and it seemed to be a good thing to do. And they probably had they remembered it from the old times, you know. It's just like when people do
Yeah,
the
all
rituals,
that pagan stuff.
they don't know why they're doing the rituals. They just know that they've always done it.
That's right. Now let's make the connection to the mafia who control the cement.
Pig
And
farms.
we've always heard things like, yeah,
Yeah, and how about the
cement
cattle industry?
shoes.
Let me see. What do we got? Kansas City, Chicago. What's in Kansas City and Chicago? Iowa,
Slaughterhouses.
slaughterhouses. Chicago is all about slaughterhouses. How many cows do they kill in Chicago every day, and where does that blood go?
Right.
Uh-huh. And who runs that business?
Now, what about hemoglobin?
What about it? Hemoglobin's
Well, you're the chemist, so I was thinking about the glue and what is the sticky substance?
Hemoglobin
right,
is
that they
a
need?
protein. It's got it all. It's got the iron, the protein, it's got the fat, it's got the chlorides, it's got all that stuff going on. And it has an electrical charge, and it's got cellular memory, and it's got DNA. Right?
Okay, you're freaking me out. You're
It's got
so
the
damn
soul
smart.
in it. It's got the soul in it. That's what it is. Okay?
Exactly.
Remember, we are a hologram and we are a fractal, which means that everything that makes us us can be contained in one single blood cell in our DNA. Every blood cell contains everything that makes us us, a single cell. And imagine our cells spread out with a whole bunch of other cells in some building. Think about Jimmy Hoffa in the bottom of some construction. Think about the Getty. Do you know how many dead little babies there are in the Getty Foundation?
God.
Every foundation. And here's another thing I put up the other day. They poured a new rec center in West Hollywood, and which is Schiff's district, right? And
oh yeah.
And it had 3,000 tons of concrete in the foundation. 3,000 tons of concrete in the foundation.
Unbelievable.
That's a lot of fucking cement. That's a lot of cement trucks dumping. I mean, each cement truck holds 6 tons. That's loads and loads. That means they went for 12 hours straight bringing in cement trucks, dumping cement into that foundation. What the hell is under that foundation that they need 3,000 ton foundation? Sounds
is
like
that the design center?
I don't know what it is. It's a rec center or something, some sort of community center that they're building over there in West Hollywood. WeHo. But anytime I hear about a big giant pour like that, I get suspicious, especially when it has anything to do with Schiff, and
oh my God.
Anyway, so yeah,
pray that guy gets
but
taken off.
The blood business, this has been going on forever. I mean, think about the churches when they build these holy houses and cathedrals. The Catholics, when they built all these churches, of course they put all these human bones and stuff into the damn foundation. It's all part of the damn ritual. And every single damn church out there has got the blood of who knows what in the concrete.
Well, this is the thing. I love a Catholic church. There's nothing more powerful than sitting in a Catholic church, lighting candles. But
well, now we
do know that, yeah, and I never would take communion when I went with my Catholic friends.
I was an altar boy. Come on.
No, but it always freaked me out, Stephen.
All right, okay, I'm going to tell you
something cannibalistic about it.
Hang on. I'm going to tell you a story now about the communion, okay, since you brought that up. All right. There was a man who had killed his wife, a young man, and he took communion. He took bread from Christ, during one of these things. I'm pretty sure it was Christ. I don't think it was one of the apostles. I think it was Christ. And when he ate this piece of bread, his hands shriveled up. And Christ said, okay, the Eucharist has shown that you've committed a sin. It's revealed what you've done. You need to confess right now. And it's similar to this whole thing with Abel's blood in the ground crying out. In other words, it's like it stays alive, right?
It's Cain and Abel.
It is Cain and Abel. It's totally Cain. It's Cain and Abel represents that contrast, that paradox that we should be looking at. Obviously Cain is, and it's funny that cement should be so closely connected to Cain, because Cain is the original builder of Babylon, which was rebuilt by Nimrod after the flood. So it's like it says very clearly in the Bible, you're not supposed to live in cities. You're supposed to spread out in the land and live off the land and have just enough to keep yourself going. You're not supposed to be, having this type of culture where we're all striving for big screens and, cell phones. Right. Things have changed.
No, it's so true. It's like The Jungle by, was it Sinclair Lewis that, it told us what really happens in those slaughterhouses. But it is the spirit. You're such an animal advocate, that we think, oh, well, animals, whatever. But no, we've got to get a handle on this. This is really, and I don't think vegan is the answer. I think, like, if you look at Temple Grandin, who was actually on the spectrum of autism, she understood animals, and she said, look, it's not that we harvest the animals. It's the way we enable them to have a good life. So chickens need to roost. They need to molt. They need to nest. Cows, every animal needs something. Pigs.
Well, yeah.
If we give them that life.
Yeah, but that's that part of the ritual too. Remember, they said that half the rituals that you have to take care of them really good and make them, you have to give them love and treat them like family, because if you don't, prior to killing, you don't imbue that energy into the animal. In other words, it's like if you don't treat that animal really good, like they're actually a human or part of the family, then the totem doesn't work. It's all about a totem. So the ritual is part of the ritual is creating a totem. Hang on, we almost ran out of time here, and I don't know if there's anybody else that wants to call in and say anything. I guess it's not. It's like Diane, your phone connection's been so terrible. Hang on, I want to look and just see who's out listening here real quick. I have so many, there's so much information I had to share with you guys that it's ridiculous. I've got like 6 or 7 PDFs open, and a good dozen pages all over the place, so it's hard for me to find everything. Okay, let me just see who's all here. United Kingdom, hi. I want to see if, okay, Oceanside. Hey, Oceanside. Utah. Thailand is here tonight. Hummelstown, PA. Hummelstown. You know what, Hummelstown? I'll tell you something about PA. Well, 9/11's been a big subject with me lately, and I didn't think a whole lot about PA, but that whole crashing into the field bullshit and all that, what a scam that whole thing was. And the same thing with New Jersey. Now I'm finding out that these bases that they supposedly 9/11 was all run out of this fort in New Jersey. I can't remember what the name was Fort Scott, something like that. It's right there on the edge of the river. It's pretty bad. So you guys are screwed. You're going down. Hey, Hawaii, I'm eating some of this chocolate. Pretty good. I got this chocolate. I got some chocolate for my birthday from Hawaii, and it's like coffee.
Nice.
I can only eat so much of it because it's so damn rich. I'm eating the coconut one right now. Last night I had one with vanilla. Anyway, who else is here? Lots of people. Encinitas. Hey, Encinitas. Oh, look at that. More Pennsylvania. We got Palmertown, PA, too. Ooh, look at that. Buffalo, New York. Elmhurst, Illinois. Auckland, New Zealand. Hey there. Who else? Well, quite a bit. I do want to make sure to say hi to United Kingdom, because I think that's probably Tony and friends. Hi. Cypress, Texas. Hey. Come on, I can't read all these essays. Okay. All right, where were we? We're getting down to the end. Is there anything else?
Well, there was that urban legend that there were a couple of workers on the Verrazano Bridge that got, there's all these stories about how people get stuck in the concrete. There's something about a sacrifice.
Well, it's
You're
all
so
true.
on it,
Yeah.
Stephen. You're so amazing. Your mind, and you're a chemist.
Yeah, well.
So I really think this is
Now,
huge.
if I was a chemist, I would be giving you much better details about what's going on with this stuff. But
well, you gave us enough.
Well, the chemistry is pretty fascinating.
Concrete pour, the Hoover Dam, and the Getty, right?
Yeah, they're right up there, and they keep doing it. They keep doing it.
So what you also helped us understand is that there's a difference between concrete and cement, right?
All right. Well, let's just talk about that real quick because I probably didn't cover that good enough. But basically, first they got to create the lime, which is the limestone that's been cooked 3,000 degrees to create the quicklime, which they pulverize and mix with powder, and they create this other thing called clinker. I don't exactly know what the clinker is, but they mix this stuff with the aggregate, which is the sand and the water and what have you, and that's how they make. The cement is the lime powder and the clinker, which is they make. That's the gray powder, and they mix the gray powder with the sand, and that makes cement. When you add aggregate like rock, then it becomes concrete. There's two kinds of cement. Typically, there's Portland cement, and Portland cement is the one that requires all of this carbon dioxide producing stuff. They're coming up with new things to replace Portland cement, which are called geopolymer cement, which, again, geopolymer, you can imagine what that is, but that has all kinds of other weird chemistry and biological shit involved. And then there's, I screw up my own brain.
Polymers.
Yeah, polymers.
Isn't that what keeps us
Polymers are what? Polymers just mean that it holds two things together. It bonds two things together. That's what a polymer is. So it's like a glue. Glue is a polymer. Water is a polymer. Technically, soap is a polymer. So soap. Remember, think about it. Soap is what the blood in the lime makes soap, which is a polymer, and it combines these things together. Anyway, as I said, there's the plastic cement is different than the Portland cement because the Portland cement is primarily used for concrete, where the plastic cement is primarily used for stucco surface treatment, as well as making things like concrete, pots and things. And then the biggest thing for plaster or plastic cement is mortar for bricks. And like I said, it has more plasticky, that's what you want. So where is this plastic coming from? Now we know it's coming from the, coming from this funny
and
stuff.
The friggin' Freemasons.
Mm-hmm. So,
right?
Well,
it's all
Freemasons,
tied into that.
It's just a big old damn gang. And you figure if you look at people like Carlos Slim and C-Mex, and again, I'll tip my hat once more to Lewis out there, Screwy Louie. Yes, Louie, you're screwy. but Lewis, you guys, I don't know exactly where the blood comes from their stuff, but indirectly you're 100% correct, because ultimately every single one of these sacrificial victims will go into cement somewhere. That's what they do. And it's not just because they need it for cement, which they do, but because it imbues the cement with all that magic. And it always has, and that's why they're doing it. And it's all about magic. And that's why we're going to win our world back with magic. Dun, dun, dun. How's that for a closure?
I love it. It's really important that people understand the power of blood, and the Red Cross drives. I could never get behind it. I didn't understand why. But when I worked at the Directors Guild, the woman that hired me had just come from the Red Cross. She was way up there in the hierarchy. And this is like 82. And she told me they're evil. I had no idea understanding what she was talking about.
Of course they're evil.
But, these are the things that kind of haunt me, right? Like,
yeah. When people think, but it doesn't, they couldn't possibly get that much human blood. Well, first of all, yeah, they could. And second of all, when you add that human blood to all that blood that they're getting from all those cows, all those pigs, all those goats, all those sheep, all the chickens, whatever the hell they're killing, and they add that all together, where do you think it all goes?
Well, my mother used to love McDonald's, like way back in the day, when it wasn't like, 50 million served. And then she found out that they mixed the beef. Like, you never knew where the beef came from. It was all these mixtures. I really think...
hang on a second. I just found something here that's just right in front of my face that I got to throw out there really quick because we're going to end the show. But as you know, I've been going after Trump, and I've been going after the 9/11. Okay. And I've also been going after New Jersey, and I've been going after Pennsylvania. Well, I'm looking hard at New Jersey right now, and I'm especially looking hard at the Teterboro Airport because I'm looking at where the damn planes landed in New Jersey, and I'm thinking Teterboro, I think it's big enough for them to have landed those planes. It's just big enough, and it's right there. Well, guess what I just found out? Donald Trump and the Clintons used this airport extensively and never had their aircraft examined nor passengers subjected to customs.
Right.
There you go. Right there. There you go.
Well,
that tells
brother,
you right
we're
there.
Going to watch it play out. I'm praying, as I know many people are, that Trump, as dirty as he is, that, there are things that he's doing.
Break. He ain't going to do shit. He's going to stay out of my way. Trump's going to stay out of my way. That's what he's going to do. Oh, look at him kissing the ass of that damn baby eater. Come on. I'm like, really?
He wasn't. No, he really wasn't.
That's what they all say. But look, optics my ass. If I was president,
his Queen's accent.
If I was president, I would have completely taken over the damn Bank of England by now. Okay? I would have been coming up through those tunnels. No, they wouldn't. They can't kill me. They'd be the ones getting killed. Come on, that's the thing. Number one on my platform was repatriate our gold and the Fed. That means taking out the Rothschilds and going to their vaults in England and taking back our gold. And that's the stuff they say belongs to the Queen. So
okay, dude, I saw it. You look at what happened when he's giving that speech with his thick Queen's accent, and Camilla, and she's sitting next to him, and Charles. They're like, they cannot believe what's going on. Mm-hmm. Something went down. We've got our sovereignty. It's not about Trump. We've got to be extremely vigilant.
Oh, I
totally agree with you. He's all about being Apollo and the gold guy. But he could have done us a tremendous service.
No, not until
it's not about him.
No, it's not until he comes clean. It's just like when, again, Cain and Abel, when God said to Cain, "Where the hell's Abel?" And Abel lied. And he said, "What are you lying to me for? I already know what's going on here because I can hear Abel yelling at me from in the ground." It's the same thing applies to Trump. We already know the truth, and until he comes clean, he can't pretend to be godlike. That's just the bottom line. It doesn't matter how godlike he acts. Until he comes clean, all his good works mean nothing. And that's just a sad fact.
Well, I understand what you're saying.
That's it.
And there's a lot of rich man, poor man shit going on.
That's right.
Where his brother became an alcoholic and was, look, he dies.
Diane,
you find these things.
Diane, where's my dinner? Laura. All right, Laura, get out of here, damn it. Jeez. It's time for you to go. We got it. All right.
Thank you.
Say good night. Bye-bye.
Good show. Bye-bye.
Yes. Okay. Let me see. Hang on. We get right buttons here. Look at that. We didn't let it. Oh, wait a minute. We've still got a listener here with us. Let's see. 570, you still here? Or who all do we have here? We've got a couple people. Come on. Pipe up. Wallflowers. Unmute. You still here? Wallflowers? No? Okay, all the wildflowers are gone. Look at that. We're still recording. Right on. I didn't screw that up. All right, anyway.
Can I ask you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because you mentioned about the problem, the solution will be holy water spread all over.
That's all I can think of.
And prayers.
Well, that's all the same thing. Prayers go into the water. That's the intention. We'll walk around with our intentions and our prayers and sprinkle holy water all over the place and hope to heck that it works, because I can't think of what else we're going to do, because it's it's just so much work. I mean, we can't be going around destroying everything just because we got to release the souls. We got to figure out a way to do this. Anyway, all right, let's get out of here. Okay? You ready to say goodnight? Okay. All right. I'll talk to you later. All right, everybody. We just hit about the 1 hour mark, and again, I hope you got something from the information, and I do apologize if it wasn't perfectly scientifically concise, but I tried to get the gist of it out there, and I hope you got the bulk of the good stuff. And I just hope you think about it. Get out of here. Shh. Don't be talking when I'm trying to say goodnight. Anyway, all right, what else? Oh, yeah, right. All right, listeners, once again, those of you that are listening live, thank you so much for being here. And those of you that are on the YouTube, thank you for sticking around all the way to the end. And again, if you would, please help me share this stuff, because I think the information is important, and it's really hard to reach out to people when they don't really understand, or they don't really have anything to cause them to think that there's value here for them. So, of course, blood is something that attracts people's attention. But again, I need your guys' help I need your help, okay? So pray for us. Send us your money. No. Yeah, send us your money, damn it. All you rich. I know you're all rich. No, that's okay. You don't have to. Send us your blood. No, sorry. Your firstborn? No. What can you send us? Chocolate? No, don't send me chocolate. It's good, though. All right, everyone. Once again, thank you so much. This is Stephen Kelley. This is Stephen D. Kelley Show. This is Truth Cat Radio. It is now 9 p.m. It is June 6, 2019. The title of tonight's show was Bloody Cement. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comment section down there in the YouTube, and I will do my best to answer you. Obviously, if you leave a comment, though, you got to come back and look for an answer, because I don't think it tells you that you got a response. You have to go back and look. And again, if you can help us financially, we appreciate it. So with that, I'm going to say, get my fingers ready. Okay. Good night. God bless. Adios. And goodbye.